эта штучка работает? Хорошо, начинаем. По-английски. Да? Dear colleagues, we're glad you're here. We're glad to see here all of you, those who are here in the Medialoft of the Russian Academy of National Economy, and those who are watching us online. And it's really great that you expressed interest, that the community expressed interest to this event and to our idea. And you asked if this event is going to be one-time event, one-time lecture. No, I'd like to assure you that our team is planning the series, the cycle of lectures dedicated to the problems of language instructions and dedicated to the questions and of teaching and learning Russian. And my name is Елизавета Kurganova. I am head of the Russian Contemporary Center of RANEPA, and so we hope that these topics will be interesting for you. We are going to discuss the most interesting topics, the most important questions, and the most troublesome issues of language teaching and learning. We are living in the time of rapid changes. And they affect not only our life, but the nature and the philosophy of teaching. So today we are going to lecture, and the lecturer, our speaker today, I think he doesn't need introduction in language teachers' audience, because it's Stanislav Chernyshov, the author of the well-known, really famous and really great textbook «Поехали», Let's Go. And the point is that this textbook is a real postmodern textbook, including irony, play, and that makes teachers, instructors, and learners to move on with Russian language during the process. So let's listen how teachers and how instructors can achieve these really great results. So,
right. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, поехали. I have a question, and I'll start with the question. I'll do it on purpose because I think questions should make a huge part of every language course, and this is the missing part in many language courses, right? I'll start right away with some, I believe, really valuable content. I think that many language courses, unfortunately, are structured the way we usually structure classes in other subjects, like physics or chemistry. That is, the teacher explains material, and then, when we start a dialogue, what happens is that teachers ask questions, and students answer. As a result, students know how to answer questions. What they are not able to do is ask questions. And when they leave the classroom and go to the real life, the main skill they need to survive in the Russian-speaking environment is asking questions. Guess what? What has been trained enough in class. So I'll start with the question. How many of you are actually language teachers, Russian teachers? Great. So I'm in a professional audience. This is really good, so you won't be bored if I discuss some really issues like verb aspects. No? It's not boring, verb aspects to you. No? Great. And not just that, but a little bit of grammar stuff will be okay, right? Perfect. And also, as you are all language teachers, some things I'll be telling you are the things you know. So don't feel offended, please. If I'm saying something, it doesn't mean I believe you don't know it. It just means I believe it's important, okay? Maybe you find something new, maybe you disagree, maybe not. And also, I'd like to do it as interactive and communicative as possible, and it takes everybody. So anytime, please feel free to interrupt me, comment, express your opinion, ask a question. Just, you know what to do, right? You know what Russians do when they want to ask a question or to say something during a lecture or a lesson, right? So feel free to start a discussion, because I don't think I'm the only person here who can tell some interesting things. I think we can all do. And it's a project for our common benefit, right? And the result, I think the ideal result of the meeting is not that just I tell you something and you learn something new. I think the ideal result would be if we all learn something new, resulting from the things I tell and the things you tell and the things you ask and my answers. And I can come to some new ideas in the course of the lecture or presentation based on your questions. It happens to me all the time when I work with students, and it happens to you, I believe, as well, right? Students ask you something, you start looking for the answer, and you have insights, right, and discover some new ideas. So once again, any comments, questions are always welcome. And also, we live in the time of comments culture, right? How many of you have ever commented on something on Facebook or other social networks without actually reading the article, just based on the headline? Be honest. Yeah, quite a few, right? So you see, commenting is one of the main activities of our time. And this is, by the way, one of the really serious things I wanted to share about how I understand my books or our books, because I'm very happy Alla, my co-author, is here as well. And because some people find certain texts or phrases used in exercises or some statements in "Поехали" too provocative, or maybe you've heard a couple of years ago some politicians claimed that they misrepresent Russia or create the wrong image of Russia. This is the first. I was asked to say something about postmodernism, so please, here it is, write it down. Tick the postmodernist part of the lecture. When I write something about Russia or just make some statements in my course book, it's not because I want to tell my students the truth. It's because I want to provoke comments, right? Let them argue against what I say, and maybe even defend some things in Russia, and it will be their own ideas, and they will definitely believe the things they say themselves more than if I told them, right? So this was not written for just teaching them the truth. Many things I write are written for comments, because I do believe that commenting is one of the main activities in nowadays world. Now I'll start with what I was thinking to start it with. I've been teaching Russian for over 25 years and spent 5 years learning to teach Russian before. I graduated in 1992 from Saint Petersburg State. As you can all imagine, that was the time of the great change, right? And our professional sphere also changed a lot in those days. And the first "Поехали" resulted as, it It was my personal response to this change, because there was for sure the entire methodology of teaching Russian as a foreign language before that. If we try to trace the history to the very beginning of this methodology, it all started first in the 20s and in the 30s in the republics of the Soviet Union, where Russian had to be taught because the literacy of the whole population was one of the major issues in Bolsheviks politics, and Russian was the lingua franca of the Soviet Union. So all people in all Soviet republics were to be taught Russian, and that was the beginning of the methodology. But after the World War II, it changed a little bit, because all of a sudden we had a lot of university students from socialist countries in Eastern Europe and from the rest of the world, mostly from what used to be called third world countries, but nowadays they are not anymore, they are developing. And these students would come to the Soviet Union for 6 years. That's important, 6 years. 1 year this special preparatory faculty, and 5 years standard Soviet university program. And the only niche, I would say, where this methodology of teaching Russian to foreigners existed in the Soviet times was, in fact, this university program for foreign students. And we still nowadays, I believe, we can feel it is still in the genes of the system. It caused many special features of this system, both in courses, textbooks, teachers' preparation, and in the system of tests, Russian as a foreign language tests, as you know it. If you have ever taught other languages, and many of you have this experience perhaps, or passed foreign language tests, you can see there is a difference between Russian as a foreign language and English, French, Spanish, Italian as a foreign language. And it is, I think it's to great extent caused by the fact that our methodology developed within these university courses, 6-year courses for foreign students, which resulted in the fact that, first of all, we have quite a lot of, teachers had quite a lot of time, right? 1 year to reach B1 with 30 lessons a week. It's quite a lot. I mean, I know, we always want more lessons, it's never enough, but still, also, if we look at the goals of education, it was mostly targeted at having higher education, university course in Russian, passing exams, reading professional literature. It was very much like foreign language courses for Russian students, by the way. Those who learned English, for example, in non-linguistic linguistic departments in the at Soviet universities, remember this translating thousands of words. They were measured with thousands, and people were not actually supposed to talk to foreigners, right? It would be suspicious to talk to them. You should be able to read, translate, and understand literature on your profession. And that was about it. That actually means that that means many things. That oral communication is still not a priority in Russian as a foreign language at universities. I mean, I couldn't believe it, but Allah has recently visited some lectures of Russian at Saint Petersburg State, which is the university I graduated from, which I'm thankful to Saint Petersburg State for many things. I was able to learn from some great scholars, but classes of Russian for foreign students are still very far from being communicative and, let's say, talkative. And so it's mostly being able to read, to write, to study in Russian. The selection of topics was also, I mean, you all remember these old-fashioned textbooks, maybe not all of you, but some of you, consisting of real-life situations like Anthony took his pencil and went from the dormitory to the dean's office. You can translate it back and you know what I mean, right? Also, very high level of linguistic competence was required, because definitely things like participles or gerunds are a must for reading professional literature, even though not used that often in daily speech, right? But would you need a lot of imperatives for studying physics or medicine? No. As a result, I won't name the author because I really respect her, and I won't give you the title of the book. I won't uncover these details, but there is a very otherwise good, solid, and famous, and it really deserves that fame, grammar book, Russian grammar book, which has participles, gerunds, but no imperatives. Now compare it to the importance of these grammar forms in our daily communication, right? Imperatives are, English speakers often say Russian is impolite because you lose a lot of imperatives, which is of course true that we do, but it does mean that Russian is impolite because different languages have different culture norms, right? It's a cross-cultural difference. Like the Japanese would always bow, and we don't, and it does mean we are all impolite, which we would look like from the Japanese point of view, right? Just imperatives in Russian are okay. The impolite form is infinitive. Встать. We talk to dogs with infinitives, right? Exactly, but imperatives can be absolutely okay, or sometimes not, and we will discuss in more details later on how to make them more sound polite. But I didn't mean to just criticize the author of the book I mentioned, just because I know where it comes from. Yeah, my main idea is not that some good scholar missed an important point in a good book. Yeah, my idea was to say that it comes from this special university environment and the special goal of learning Russian for getting a diploma in in medicine, construction, engineering, which doesn't require using imperatives, but does require knowing how to read texts filled with participles and gerunds, right? I just mean to say that it still influences methodology nowadays, the origins of the method. So when I came into teaching in 1992, everything was changing. And all of a sudden, we had a new huge group of students who came from Western countries to Russia, eager to build business in this new business virgin country, or to discover culture of the country that has just opened to the West. And so they had, or because they had Russian friends, or because they wanted to travel in Russia, or for many reasons. Oh, romance was an important reason as well, right? Because they had a relationship with a Russian partner. But that was very different from this university Russian as a foreign language system, and required a different methodology. Because, you know, someone would take this START textbook, start teaching this new student, and finish in a couple of weeks because students were not interested and not motivated. They just didn't need this dormitory and dean's office stuff. And they didn't want to learn, actually they didn't want to learn grammar at all, which is another point, but so I remember I started teaching in 1992 in September, and I started my teaching career at one of state universities at this preparatory faculty, or whatever you brand it, but all of a sudden I found that I was totally unprepared to give Russian classes to foreign students. I don't know whether you share my view or not, but in 5 years of studying at Saint Petersburg State, they gave me actually great linguistic preparation. I learned Russian morphology and grammar from Bulanin, and I'm still very grateful to this person because he really taught me to think grammar, to analyze how it works, the functional view of Russian grammar. That was a great linguist who was reconsidering and recreating his own grammar conceptions in the course of the lecture. He would walk around, speak slowly, thinking all the time, and arguing with his articles published 2 years before. And that was a great experience because we could see like his mental lab of analyzing grammar. It was all exposed. I learned the history of Russian from Kolesov, one of the greatest scholars in this field. And when I say one of, I mean one of 5 or 4 greatest. And there were some other I had some other really great teachers. But I know I was supposed to say some provocative things, right? So, here you are. But all courses devoted to teaching Russian as a foreign language were a disaster. In one course, I was told a very detailed classification of written work students are supposed to submit and other, things of no value at all. One of our teachers of Russian as a foreign language courses would train us in good handwriting. I mean, imagine, it was like 3rd year at university, philology faculty, and people would sometimes go red and start crying because they were publicly criticized for bad handwriting. The last course in the 5th year was, language and culture course. And, I just attended one lecture because I didn't want to waste time on it. I was writing my final research, and I think it was interesting. And there were 2, maybe have you heard of Ilya Utechin from European University in Saint Petersburg? The one who wrote an excellent book on communal flats, and we studied together. So Ilya Utechin and me were the 2 students in our course in the 5th year who just attended one single lecture of this language and culture course because we didn't want to waste time. And then we had to pass the test like on special terms after the diploma and just to get the papers. So I think it speaks more of the course quality than that we were just lazy students. So preparation of teachers, I would say, was poor. It was good linguistic education, but I didn't know what to do in class. But it still worked somehow because I had one very strong, powerful ally when I started teaching. Fear. Students who came to Russia, already Russia, right, not the Soviet Union, to Russia, from their countries. I had a group mostly of students from Northern Africa. They were sent and financed by their governments, and they were really afraid of failing the exams and being sent back home. And that was the only motivation, actually, for them to learn Russian. And I didn't like it. By the way, I still hate exams. I enjoy teaching, but I still hate exams, absolutely. Because sometimes I can see people crying when they fail, and I'm a kind person, and I'm really, it's painful. Because on one hand, I cannot say you can be a Russian teacher from now on. No, you can't. But on the other hand, like, yeah, it's horrible. So this system worked. I know there were some great teachers. I'm not saying everyone was bad. What I'm saying is that quite a lot of teachers who got the diploma of Russian as a foreign language teacher were unprepared in the beginning of their career, totally unprepared. They learned everything in practice. Because in 5 years, no one ever told me in which order I shall give grammar topics, or which conversational topics are better, go better with which grammar topics, or how I shall explain verbs of motion or verb aspects or the usage of dative, or how can I make students talk? Like, all the things were not covered in the course. And my second point is that this system functioned because students had a lot of time, and there was fear on the side of the teacher. Even as unprofessional teacher as I was in those days. And then at some point, 2 years later, to avoid starving to death, I changed to teaching in a private language school, which was better paid. And I had absolutely different students mostly coming from Western Europe, with their business interests, romance interests, and so on. And I knew that I had to, first of all, they were motivated, so they wanted really to speak the language. They were very short of time. That was perhaps the first important thing I learned about methodology. It was 2 years after my university graduation. You know, the main law, the principal law of economics, I believe, is that there is always a shortage of money. Yeah, resources are scarce. The number one methodology, teaching methodology law for me is there is always a shortage of time. We should never forget it. So, they were very short of time. They paid enormous money to this private language school and came for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They couldn't afford more. I'll just tell you a funny story about one of my students, which happened a decade later perhaps, when I started my own language school in Saint Petersburg, we had a great student, a cardiologist, a heart surgeon from the United States. A great man who he saved like numerous lives, and he's very rich, very famous in his professional field. And by the way, he passed, I think, he passed TOEFL 2 exam at the age of 70. Great motivation too. So once in St. Petersburg underground, pickpockets stole his wallet. And the next morning he came to school sad, disappointed. I asked him what happened, and he said, you know, my wallet got stolen. He's a foreigner, senior age, so they pickpockets like this kind of people, and looks rich, and he was. How many money did you have there? About $200. And I went like, come on, you drive a Bentley. It's like, I know, it's nothing. And then he said, I really learned something from him. He reconfirmed my law. He said, you know, I had my cards with words in there. And do you know how many hours I spent writing these flashcards? And now stop. That he's American, I must say. And now, can you imagine how much is 1 hour of my time? They had, and they never will be able to steal more than this time. Like that's the biggest amount St. Petersburg pickpockets can ever steal, unless they rob the Hermitage. This is about the value of time, right? In the eyes of students like that. So I had to start thinking different. There was no fear, there was my fear. Because if they don't want to study, I'm not paid. There is no exam. Yeah? They are clients. And they are very short of time. And they have their particular goals. So when I wrote my first Поехали, I know it's not perfect. The good news is we are writing a new version, a totally new version, which is supposed to be available in spring, before summer. And it has like maybe only, I think, about 15% of the old Поехали. Because the first Поехали was good because it was very up to date. But it was 17 years ago. So a textbook cannot be up to date for 17 years. Not in our time, at least, right? It was possible maybe 500 years ago, but not with our pace of change. But when I wrote my first Поехали, I just wanted to have a book to work with these clients in these conditions, which was not available on the market, or almost, hardly any. There was just this old-fashioned approach, which I call XXX approach. I mean, explanations, exercises, exams. XXX. Explanations, exercises, exams. Doesn't work with the new audience that I had. So there was another approach available on the market at that time, and I think it's the other extremity. That was the so-called communicative method, which was introduced and developed by some really great, very bright and charismatic teachers like Kitaygorodskaya and some others. I mean, with a great teacher, anything can work. A great teacher can give a very efficient course based on a phone directory or anything else. But if we think that communicative approach means just deleting grammar as such from the course, like given no grammar or not based on grammar, just based on dialects, training, and then these words and expressions stick natural way and the person starts talking because of the immersion effect. Frankly speaking, I don't believe it works for Russia. I do believe it does work. It's just not efficient. It's not the fastest way. It's not the most efficient way. It can work, but it's a great lie that is often used in ads for language courses, that you can learn the natural way like kids do. No, you can't. Adults cannot learn like kids. You know that, don't you? Because you know that at the age of 11 to 13, our body changes. We have this new hormones that make us adult, and at the same time, the function of our brain changes as well. Like kids cannot learn math properly at the age when they learn their first language. When they learn the mother tongue, they can't learn math, physics, or the things we learn at school. They cannot do this deduction, logical operations, abstract thinking, but they can learn languages natural way. Then everything changes. We lose this ability completely, almost completely. But we acquire some new valuable abilities like abstract thinking and using models and understanding. So methods for adults should be based on that. Also, this method can be okay for some languages, like almost like no grammar languages. I mean, like Chinese. Who has learned any Chinese? Yeah. Grammar is not a big issue, right? There are other problems, but not grammar. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean, right? Or English. I love this expression, I quote you. Allah calls English I language. There is an iPhone, iPad, and I language. Because you can say everything with I and the verb to be in the present tense. I am Stas, I'm a teacher, I'm 47, I'm happy to see you, I need, I want, I have to, I can, I can't. Can you count how many cases I need to say that in Russian already? Yeah? Yeah, go ahead. So, in English, basically you learn words and you talk. Oh, okay, you have to learn the word order, but it's clear and it helps you. In Russian, you can't learn words and talk because words always change, because there are no words in the English sense, right? It's an old joke, but one of my American students who is married to a Russian opera singer says, in America I've got just one wife. In Russia I've got 5, even though I'm not Muslim. They are mlada, mladu, mlady, mladie, mladoi. Her name is Mlada Khudaley. She is a great opera singer. Who is interested in opera, I can recommend you listen, especially Wagner. But anyway, there are no words in Russian to learn like that, right? You can't recognize them. And there is no word order either. Джека убил Джон. You can learn the words. You know the verb убил, you know what Jack and John are. But hardly 10% of English speakers who are learning Russian can get the message of Джека убил John, right? Most of them would misunderstand it completely. Or those who will understand, I mean, I sometimes feel like I can hear some sounds coming from their head when they are trying to process it and figure out what happened. Yeah. Who's dead and who should go to prison? But it's a natural way to say it for us, right? Who would say John убил Jacka? Jack's friends and relatives. Poor Jack is dead. John убил Jacka. Right? And who would say Jack убил John? The police investigator, exactly. Because this guy is dead. This is not like, I'm not interested in him. I'm interested in who's the murderer. And we see the police investigator walking around thinking and finally saying, Jack убил John. Because that's what matters. And then if I give this example to my students, if these were two guys from the mafia and they had a conflict and their colleagues knew there was some trouble going on between the two, they would meet in a bar, a strip club, a casino, whatever these mafia guys meet, and share the news. You know, John Jacka убил, right? Because they knew that was going to happen, and finally, this is the news. So these are the reasons why I think grammar-free approach wouldn't work for Russian. I mean, I don't believe it. You can learn some really basic stuff like survival Russian for tourists. But this is also fine, you know. The funniest thing I often hear from students is, you can tell me yours, but mine, funniest thing I often hear from students is, I don't want to learn Russian. No grammar, please. No complicated stuff. Just simple, basic daily things like, how can I get to... Yeah, I can see I'm in professional audience. You got the joke, right? How can I get to just simple things? No grammar, please. Yeah. And grammar-free approach wouldn't work. You can learn some sentences like сколько стоит, can I have this, can I have that, how much it costs. But once again, you know what? The world has changed. And most of the things you can learn and use for survival like that, though that are still used in this sort of tourist guide style language books, are entirely useless today. Because we do most of these things without speaking at all. We don't speak shopping for food. We go to a supermarket, take what we need, and give the credit card. You should remember your PIN code. That's the only thing you should remember. It's math, it's not language course. We don't buy tickets. We buy them online. And most websites that sell theater and especially airplane tickets have an English version. I mean, think about it. Most of this survival stuff is gone. There is no more «позовите, пожалуйста». Because a mobile phone belongs to a person, not to a place. You always know who you are talking to. What you don't know is whether it is the right time or not. And this is what you are supposed to ask now, right? To be polite. Есть минутка? Something like that. No more можно. Or позовите, пожалуйста. So the world has changed, and most of this survival stuff is really useless. What students still believe to be useful is absolutely useless today. But it does mean you don't need the language. You still need it. But you need it to talk to people, to communicate, to exchange opinions. And for that, you cannot just use learned expressions, which you learn as entities, as a whole. You have to be able to, not to reproduce, but to produce this speech based on patterns, but to produce yourself. Reproduction is useless, production is still useful. But that means you have to learn the way it works. I'm not talking, when I talk about teaching grammar, I don't mean, of course, learning Russian grammar terms. I'm proud, actually, that I have, in 25 years, I haven't taught anybody the word предложный, for example, unless I was asked 7 times at least. Before I would say, I would always even tell the student, if asked, maybe you learn something useful instead, right? Some words you would actually use out of class. Or there was a discussion on Facebook, and some of you might know, I'm sometimes quite active in professional Facebook groups for Russian teachers, so there was a discussion about learning the alphabet. And there were teachers who were serious defending that you must learn the alphabet. Why? I mean, it made sense a few years ago for using a dictionary. Now, most people use electronic dictionaries. I always recommend Lingua, for example, but you don't need the alphabet to use this dictionary. And in a few years, I'm almost sure that paper dictionaries will disappear. Yes, some professionals might still be using them. And they would already learn the alphabet one day, not in the first lesson. But I mean, starting a language course with an adult person who is definitely short of time with learning the alphabet is, I think it's demotivating. So, my idea when writing the first Поехали was to create a book for this new style courses for this new category of students. And the 2 main principles were to give grammar in some order which would be easy to digest, and to make students talk all the time in the course of learning the language. So I meant it to be a communicative course, not because it's grammar-free, and not because there are dialects to be reproduced in every lesson, but because students can start talking from almost any point in the book. I believe that speaking is the main activity in a language class, and all other activities we might use, explaining grammar, doing exercises, reading, listening exercises, writing, whatever else you might think of, they are all just some extra activities to support the main activity of speaking. And all Поехали books are written the way that they provoke students to start speaking in the middle of a grammar exercise. Have you noticed sometimes? Or in the middle of reading a text. There are also special speaking parts of the book, and the new Поехали 1 will have the same kind of speaking exercises as Поехали 2 already has, like, what would you do if, or do you agree that? But for me, every exercise in the book, no matter if it looks like it's devoted to reading or grammar, it is a speaking exercise, essentially. Because there is nothing more important than speaking that you can do in class. And every time you stop an activity you were doing with the grammar, reading, whatever, and start a discussion, It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. It's the best thing that can happen. Yeah? You are not being distracted. You are doing the main work when you speak. And once again, many statements are not there to teach you life. I mean, it's openly said on the cover of Поехали, Russian for adults. So if some things, if there are some things you disagree with, these are the things to disagree with. Yeah, because students should be able to disagree. When we agree, we don't talk, we smile. Linguists have counted that on the average, every language has more words for negative emotions than words for expressing positive emotions. Guess why? Because when everything is fine, we don't talk, we smile and enjoy. And when there is a problem or disagreement, we start talking. And that's why I don't like this sweet and polished world we find in some language course books, where everything is good, everybody likes everything and everybody. Yeah, and everything is so nice that there is nothing you can actually discuss. Because it's not like real life. Because this is not the life students are going to face when they start using their language. Imagine a student, after such a course, a student comes to Russia, starts living here, talking to Russians. I mean, I've talked to Russians quite a lot. I've been living here for 47 years. I know I'm from Saint Petersburg, it's a cultural capital, but still. Do you believe that Russians are going to say only nice things to this person? No. Less than if he or she lived in the UK or the United States, even, right? Russians don't do small talk. It's not in our culture. A person who starts communication with a lot of small talk in Russia would look either stupid or suspicious, right? His thoughts might be so bad that he or she can't uncover them, right? And speaks only about meaningless things like weather. We are very different, and this is the thing I love, by the way, about Russian culture. That we don't accept small talk for real communication. Communication should be meaningful. People should talk about important things like politics, Dostoevsky, religion, family conflicts, whatever. People talk about these things, right? Economical problems, international, I mean, can you imagine? I've seen a lot of foreigners talking to Russians. Our foreign student, who, imagine we were too careful, we would be like, we would behave American or British way and be extremely politically correct during the entire language course. And then our students meets Russians, has a beer, and Russians start talking to our foreigner who comes from whatever Western country. I know what would happen. Russians will start talking to him about Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, gay marriage, sanctions. No? Yes. And he or she is totally unprepared, right? Because we've been only discussing weather. And I think this is wrong. I mean, this is bad for our students. This is once again, this is something I love about Russian culture. We can talk about lots of things they can't. And many of my American or British students or German students would say in class, this is what we enjoy here, being able to openly talk about anything and disagree and have an argument. I mean, I often have a discussion with my close friends about all these things. Russian friends, I mean, don't you? Occasionally? Sure. This is what communication is for us. And this explains the things you find in Поехали, because I believe foreign students should learn Russian culture, including the Russian understanding of communication, which is about exchanging opinions, about being able to disagree, to explain your point, to understand the other person's point, which is different from yours. Because in this sense, yes, I'm saying, we are a free country in this respect. We are a free country. When we talk in the kitchen, I mean, we are more free than anybody. And by the way, also, since we mentioned, these students, what I was talking about, I'll have some coffee. You know, in Поехали 2, I had a joke, I had a short text about our president who says, I've got a simple job. I just say yes or no. And I had some trouble because of this text, which was finally finished somehow smoothly, but I was surprised to have a call from Izvestia newspaper with the journalist asking me, you don't respect our president's thing. But still, nevertheless, what I meant to say with this joke was actually creating a very positive image of our country in Western students. Because given the reputation the Soviet Union had, and given the reputation our country unfortunately still sometimes has in the West, I meant that students would read the text and say, you know, these Russians, they're almost human. They're people like us. Look, they can make jokes about their president. Isn't that great? Because, you know, look at the media in the United States today and you'll see what I mean, yeah? I mean, like, this is natural. I had a lot of criticism for my jokes about the police or the parliament members in some texts or exercises in Поехали 2. You know what? I worked with foreign students using these books quite a lot. The funny fact is none of them actually thinks about Russia while reading that a parliament member wants to become a footballer because people know and like footballers and they know but don't like parliament members. Everybody thinks about their own parliament and appreciates the joke. And they can see that, yeah, Russians are just like us, and it's true actually, it's about our country. And they find it funny. And then think about their own parliaments. Yeah. So all these things that you see, they are once again not to teach the truth, but to cause commenting and discussions. Now, my second idea, so one idea for writing Поехали, my goal was to make students talk. The other one was to give grammar in a way that it would be easy to digest. One of the things that I still believe was a good that we preserve in the second Поехали, because I think it was a good and efficient approach, was the order, which includes cases and verb topics always sort of rotating. Like after every case, there is a verb topic. After each topic devoted to verbs, there is a new case. Because with the beginner student of Russian, we have two main goals: teach the verb system and teach the case system. I decided that if we give two cases, one after another, students will mix them up. If we give two verb forms, one after another, students will mix them up. If we give a case, a verbal topic, a case, a verbal topic, a case, a verbal topic, and build the program the way that every coming case gives us an opportunity to repeat the previous verb topic. And each new verb topic is supposed to give us chance to train a bit more the preceding case. That would give us, that would work the way that we can go quite fast, but without losing, forgetting, or mixing up things. And this is the way Поехали is built. And the new Поехали one will be built. If you look at the contents, you can see the structure. Yeah, it's just to remind you, 5 minutes. It's verbs in the present tense, prepositional, past tense, accusative, verbs of motion, genitive, cases, verb aspects, dative, imperative, instrumental, verbs of motion with prefixes. If you look at it, each following topics is different. Like there is a verb coming after case and there is a case coming after verb. And each following topic makes us repeat the previous one. Because when we talk, when we start the past tense of verbs, we are talking prepositional. Where have you been? What have you done? When we take verbs of motion, we are repeating prepositional accusative. When we take genitive, we repeat verbs of motion with where from. And so on. When we take dative, for example, there is no way, I believe, you can give dative before you give verb aspects, because most verbs that take dative are usually used as perfective verbs. Think of to call all this to help, and you will see that you encounter perfective ones more often in daily speech than imperfectives. So somehow you still repeat perfective and imperfective verbs while doing dative. Imperatives often come with dative, so it makes you review dative when you do imperatives. Some people say Поехали is too fast. I'll say I'll say a horrible thing. I don't think when we do lesson 5, everything from lesson 4 should be learned by heart. I don't believe in learning words either. I mean, I've told you about my student with flashcards. I never told him to write these flashcards in the first place. I believe people learn words by using them. And I believe that unlike geography, where if you were ill when we were discussing Africa, and then we are talking Australia, and you missed these Africa classes, it's gone, right? And you will fail at the exam if you have to talk about Africa. Language is different. Every topic we take reoccurs in usage all the time. So I don't really mean the students, when we finish lesson 5, it does mean that everything from lesson 5 should be learned by heart, because lesson 6 is built the way that it partly reviews lesson 5. And then gives us a faster pace in the program and saves time. By the way, what are the things that make Russian look difficult? Russian has a reputation of a difficult language to learn. I want some feedback. What makes Russian difficult? What are the things that make it so strange? Cases, right. What else? Aspects, right. What else? Verbs of motion. And? Yeah, verbs of motion, right. And the first thing that our students see? Yeah, the alphabet, the letters. It's just a little trick, but okay, we are privileged. We teach in a private school, so we don't have to give our students handwriting at the very beginning. So we just teach one alphabet, not two. This is the reason why you never find handwriting in Поехали. And never will. Because I do respect the demands of the tests. I know that if you teach at university, you have to teach handwriting. But trying to be up to date, I can see that it's almost disappearing from our daily lives, right? Better learn typing using the Russian keyboard. So I'm not against handwriting completely. I'm just leaving it to the teacher. If you have to, give it. But if you don't, it will come one day maybe, but I hardly do any handwriting these days. Yeah? I mean, you can write, if you have to fill in some form, they often require that you use sort of printed letters. Also, I don't like actually the idea that Russia or Russian are too exotic. I think it's very much exaggerated. Our difference from the rest of the world is very much exaggerated on both sides by us and by our foreign students. And what I do in all my courses is I try to fight this idea. And I started right in the first lesson, I asked, why do you think we have different letters? Do you know what students usually say? Because it's a different language. Wow. And German and Italian are the same language, aren't they? Oh, yeah, because it's a Slavic language. Poland, hello. So they always think it's something, it has something to do with the language. Because, okay, and here I'll give you a piece of another idea which is very dear to me, because we all are the people of the book. Our civilization, no matter if we are Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, we are all dominated by the authority of a written text, of the book. And we really think, and in language tuition as well, especially in this Soviet university-based Russian as a foreign language tradition, but generally in our European civilization in the broad sense, we believe that the written form of language is somehow superior and more important than the oral form. And we forget the simple fact, for example, that how many languages are there in the world? Yeah, right. 5 to 7,000, exactly. 5 to 7, depending on how you count, and also they disappear every day, but 5 to 7,000 languages. And the age of the language is, how long have the human language existed? Yeah, but at least 100,000 years for sure. So just think about it. Most of languages that exist on the earth today have no writing at all, are purely oral languages with no writing at all. Most of its history, a human language had no writing system. It was all oral. Great works of literature, like the Vedic texts or the ancient Greek literature, were passed over from generation to generation as oral, in oral tradition before they were first written, for centuries. Writing was a technical solution of one technical problem, two problems in fact, of passing over a message in time and space, right? Of course, with oral speech, it was impossible to be heard 100 kilometers from here or 10 years from now. We sorted it out with writing, inventing writing. But nowadays, with the technical progress, I hope someone is listening to me and even seeing me, maybe in Canada. And you can also, hopefully, review this tape 5 years from now, in the future. So we are able to pass over in time and space the oral form with all the intonations, gestures, everything that it has to offer in this natural, original formal language. So I'm not saying writing is bad. I enjoy reading, especially books, paper books, especially old ones. But this is my personal taste. As a linguist, I won't be surprised if the importance of writing and reading written texts will fade in the nearest future, in the next few decades. I can already see that I like reading. Allah, do you like reading? Yes. Our son, who is 20, somehow, but he can occasionally read a book, but not as much as we do. Our daughter, who is 15, no, YouTube is her main access to any sort of information, right? And there was an interesting discussion recently on Facebook, today, about these Chinese students, and they mentioned Chernyshov, a great researcher from Saint Petersburg University, and in one of her recent lectures, she said that generally our perception of information on the average globally is shifting from the left hemisphere to the right hemisphere because of the way we receive and process information, visual form. Videos and infographics are dominating, right, today. They are the big fashion. So once again, I have nothing against writing, but I don't think we should, I think it is overestimated somehow. And if we want to look into the future, we should pay more attention to oral form. And even in linguistic research, there are, because of this, by the way, because of this overestimated importance of writing and reading, our oral speech is still not studied enough. All the things like intonations, mimics, the way we, in Saint Petersburg, at our university, they recorded people a few years ago. They ran this experiment. They recorded people's oral speech just day by day and then started the tapes. And the first and main conclusion of the researchers was, it's a new language. This is a language we haven't described yet. Yeah, our linguistic tradition somehow just missed it out. We don't know what's going on. We cannot classify it. We don't know how it works. It's another language system. So we should pay closer attention to that and should work on that more. So, coming back to the alphabet. You know, my students are always surprised if I tell them the only reason we use a different alphabet is we have a different religion. I mean, I'm not that much, but we are Orthodox, and you are, for example, Catholic or Protestant. And this is why we use different letters. And if you ask a person from Austria or the Netherlands or Sweden, does it really matter to you? No. Yeah? It's just history of the church. Can you think about it? It does make Russian, it should make Russian an exotic language because it's just a fact of church history. It has no linguistic grounds. There are Slavic languages that use Latin letters, Czech, Polish, Croatian. Serbian and Croatian, I mean, they would disagree for political reasons nowadays, but it's almost the same language. It used to be the same language. They just use different letters because they have different religions. And I decided that this is something our students should know because it makes Russian immediately look less exotic, right? It's not a different language, it's different letters, and it's just because of religion. It's something that happened in the church 1,000 years ago. Come on. It's still a nice tradition, but by the way, there were attempts to change Russian to the Latin alphabet. There was a state commission working on that after the revolution in late 20s, I think, and then Stalin closed the commission because they decided that instead of starting the world revolution right away, we can first try building socialism in one isolated country. That's why we still use Cyrillic. I'm serious. Do you think he couldn't have done, couldn't have changed Russian to Latin if he wanted? Of course he could. The next difficulty is cases. I know Russian is not an easy language to learn, but I always try to pretend it is, or to make students feel it's easier than it is. I'm sure you do it as well, right? One of the important parts of a Russian teacher's job is to have this anesthetic effect on students, right? To make it as painless as possible, the process of learning. So, the way we do it nowadays is first we create motivation. We give the function, and then we give the form. And that what I know some of you do it already, but just don't forget. First give the function and then give the form. Create the need, as they say in marketing. First, create the need, and then people would be happy to accept the solution. Right? So first, create a situation where a student is willing to say something but has no means, and then give the means. And when I start giving the cases, I usually start with something maybe using the student's language, or speaking English or French or German or Italian or whatever my student speaks, because I'm not a proponent of just using Russian in class in the process of teaching. I think you should use anything that works. If you can dance or sing or whatever, or convince student to make it a 2, which helps to learn, do it. But I always first I ask students, what do you think is the main difference between, let's say, English and Russian? Because English is usually the foreign language everybody speaks, and fortunately for us, somehow unfortunately, but fortunately this time, it's one of the most different from Russian, languages you can find in Europe, right? It's very different. It's entirely different as a system. Russian is very much like Latin, right? That's why we use different letters, because if you write it down with Latin letters, it would be Latin. That's why we use Cyrillic. So, the main difference, students say, is that you have cases. Everybody knows that. Our next question is, why do we have cases? You know, not we as teachers, but we as a general public, both in Russia and in other countries, because of the school system perhaps, we have a very strange view of the language and of language rules, I believe. You know, when I say, talking to Russians, for example, when I say I'm a linguist, I'm a specialist in the Russian language, the questions I'm usually asked by Russians, the questions are not what is the best way to say that? Or how else can I say that? It's not about how I can. It's always about how I can't. Like, do you agree that coffee cannot be mayo? Or is it right that it's incorrect to say zvonit? People are always interested in mistakes and, you know, this sort of language as a prohibition system. Like avoiding making mistakes. I think it's because of the schools, because you are punished for mistakes and you are learning to have good marks. And language is not an exciting game you play, not a means of thought and communication. It's a set of rules you are punished for if you violate. And this is a wrong approach in the first place. So, what are these cases for? To speak correctly. Because otherwise students will be unhappy. And I'll fail my exam. Wrong. Cases were not created to complicate your lives. Even though many students think so. I mean, nothing in the language was created to complicate your lives. After all, who created the Russian language system? Russians who lived 300, 400, 500 years ago. Can you imagine an average Russian living 500 years ago? Mostly he was a peasant, not very educated, to put it mildly, right? With very, very simple lifestyle. And other problems to care about than to create a sophisticated system. So if there are cases, it's not because these are rules to speak correctly. Yeah? It's not because someone wanted to make it difficult. It's because they were there to help you. How happens these cases can help me? Come on, because we have free word order. And I always start giving case system with that. We are a language with free word order. I can say, John убил Джека, Джека убил Джон, Джон Джека убил. Рыбу съела кошка. Yeah, exactly. If you are an English speaker, you imagine a shark eating the poor cat. Рыбу съела кошка, друзья мои. Because I'm interested where the hell is the fish, right? The fish is missing from the table. Рыбу съела кошка. Really? Does it mean I can toss the words around any way I like it? Yes, almost. To emphasize different parts of the message, for example, as we have seen with these mafia guys. So how can I understand what's going on? Cases. They are here to help you. They are the only means that help to find out what's going on when Russians actually talk. And by the way, I start teaching the flexible, I'm not saying free word order because people start arguing. I think it's free. Free does mean arbitrary. It's not entirely arbitrary. Let's call it flexible. This is the most suitable term. I start teaching the flexible Russian word order in lesson 2 of the first Поехали. Because I think we should make students get used to it. Have you ever heard that Russians talk too fast? Yes. So have I. Which is untrue. I think by the according to the linguistic research, I remember we are number 8 or so among European languages. The French are the fastest. There's a number of syllables per minute. Though I was a bit surprised to it because I speak French myself, and I'm not sure what you mean by the syllable in French because they have this wonderful liaison, but still, they are the fastest by the number of syllables pronounced per minute. Russians are not. And by the way, students, do your students try to speak as fast as possible when they learn Russian? Too fast sometimes, right? Making mistakes. I'll give you a trick. Do you know what I tell them? I tell that you shouldn't, because every culture has a different, not set of rules, but gives value to different characteristics of one's speech. For example, it was found out, surprisingly, that in American culture, important people speak with a low voice. Oh, for real, like John Wayne. In American culture, if you sound like that, you are an important person. On the contrary, surprisingly, in British culture, an important person would speak like that. That's how important people talk in the UK. Even though they speak the same language, you know, these are two nations divided by the same language, they say. Now, tell me how important people speak in Russia. Right, slowly. I promised not to talk about politics today, no kidding. Do you know the very important person in Russia who speaks slowly? Do you? Making famous poses from time to time. Also from Saint Petersburg. In Russia, important people speak slowly. Tell this to your students. Exactly, right. But yeah, and I mean, and it's from top politicians to to criminals, right? Criminal leaders of the criminal world. Important people speak slowly. In Russia, if you speak too fast, you're a waiter. No offense, but yeah, or something like that. You're a servant. This is a really helpful advice, because if you tell this to your students, they immediately stop trying to be as fast as possible. They stop rushing into making mistakes and, don't be fluent. I mean, what you mean by being fluent? Don't do that. Speak slowly. People will listen. But students often say Russians speak too fast. And my hypothesis is that to a great extent, this is due to the fact that it takes a lot of time to process what students hear and to figure out the word order. Because it's not the word order they are used to. Because processing рыбу съела кошка takes about twice as much time as кошка съела рыбу. If your mother tongue is English, French, Italian, German, or Chinese. So, I would once again recommend to start teaching the word order from the very beginning, step by step, and it will also help you to give cases. Because with the free word order, you can demonstrate what they are for. They're not rules, they are tools. They're not rules, they are tools.
Maybe we should ask our listeners whether they have some questions or maybe ideas. They have, you need maybe some more minutes to...
Yeah, I'll go to and then, of course, I enjoy discussions and we'll definitely give, yeah. So, yeah, there are two more things I tell about cases, just to make them, to help form a better attitude to our wonderful case system. Who has got a dog? A dog? Yeah. You? Too. Yeah. I tell my students Russian words are like dogs. If you look at a dog, you can always see whether the dog is scared or happy or angry, right? Dogs move their tails to show their mood. Russian words are like dogs. They move their tails, change endings, to show what they are. The subject, the object, the instrument, the place. This is one, I think it's a cool metaphor or comparison to help students change their attitude. Make cases fun. The other one is the theater metaphor. English words are like soldiers, standing, each one at its own position, strictly prescribed by the rules. Russian words are like actors in the theater. Actors move on stage. I love this metaphor. Actors move on stage, right? But you can always see what they are, their character, by the makeup and the way they are dressed. A word is an actor. The case and the case ending are the makeup and the dress. And the position can change, but no matter where the actor stands on stage, but the makeup and the costume, that is the case ending, you can see which role this actor, the word, is playing in this play, which is the sentence. I think it really reflects the way the language system works, but in a very human way and easy to understand, right? Makes it look nice. Yeah?
One of my students said that Russian language is a drama queen.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a drama. Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, talking about mistakes. We usually, first of all, we don't mind mistakes. No one, I always tell my students, no one has ever learned anything without making mistakes in human history, right? I sometimes quote these famous words by Edison, I think, right? I failed my way to success. But that's what we all do when we learn. But still, there are three types of mistakes language students make. The first is the least important and the most common, unfortunately the least important. These are the mistakes that go right into your ears, but don't get deeper. These are usually, not always, but most of case endings mistakes. Like, if I say something like, «Я живу в Петербургах», as if there were many. Okay, I had a grammar table with prepositional case endings, and instead of singular, I used plural. I just remember the wrong part of the grammar table. But it's fine, you still can get my message, right? You know what I mean? You know, I'm a foreigner, I have some problems with case endings, but it's okay. That's what most case-related mistakes are like. Some other kind of mistakes are the mistakes that go into your mind, into your head. When you misunderstand the person, you misinterpret the message. These are often the mistakes you make with verbs, or with verbs of motion, right? Sometimes with cases as well. Like, you say, Stanislav приехал в Москву, or Stanislav приезжал в Москву, right? In the first case, I'm here and talking to you. In the second case, I've already left. I'm here or I'm there, right? This is a typical mistake that goes into your head or your mind. But there are mistakes, usually with aspects, for example, aspects in the imperative, that go into your, whatever you believe, your heart, your soul, but that reflect on your emotions, that affect your attitude to the person. And these are the least studied mistakes, the topics some language teachers and many language course book authors avoid somehow, but the most important ones, because after a certain number of these mistakes, a Russian person would just stop talking to you if you are a foreigner, because nobody will ever understand it was about grammar. They would think it's about your attitude, your intonation, the way you look at them, the way you treat the person. From some very simple ones, like, I'll quote the easy one from you. If, imagine, we are not a conservative family, right? Both work, we always do housework as well. But imagine, I come home and my wife tells me, I ask, how are you? And my wife tells me, я убирала дом, я готовила, я покупала продукты. Okay, I didn't spend the time. In a nightclub either, right? I start feeling irritated. I mean, I love you, darling. I know your life is hard, but why are you telling me all that, right? You are complaining, perhaps, right? I don't like when people complain. I want everybody to be happy. Or, я купила продукты, убрала квартиру, приготовила ужин. Thank you. Yeah, my queen. I'm so happy I met you 20 years ago. Yeah? I'm enjoying my evening at home. You see? But this was just easy stuff. If we talk about, let's now make some plans, right? I'm still going to Saint Petersburg today, but just imagine. I have a train at midnight, but imagine I'm inviting you to a restaurant after the lecture, and you're saying, no, я иду в кино, or я пойду в кино. How do I feel? What's the difference? The first is, okay, it's fine, next time perhaps, right? Because you had your plans, maybe someone bought you tickets and you don't want to insult this person. And in the second case, yes, yeah, you evaluated me and found less important than someone or something else, right? And I feel offended. And I want, there will be no next time. So the first would result in next time perhaps, the second, there will be no next time. But the worst thing is making mistakes with imperatives. Because once again, Russians love imperatives, right? We talk with imperatives all the time. And they are fine if you use them properly. So it's not surprising that a half of the first volume of the second Поехали almost is devoted to imperatives. And it said that imperfective imperatives are to be used as invitations or permissions, or perfective imperatives are used for requests. It is very important to point out that it would be absolutely wrong to say that imperfective is impolite, go for perfective, or perfective is impolite, go for imperfective. No way. It should be related to the situation. And the best way we can explain it to students is usually by moving hands. The imperfective imperative is the one you do like that. I'm happy I can show you now, unlike the book, right? Like that. Because if you are my guest, I'll be just using imperfective imperatives talking to you. Входите, раздевайтесь, садитесь, пейте кофе, берите торт. Right? Now imagine I just changed this. Войдите, разденьтесь, сядьте, выпейте кофе, возьмите торт. Я арестован? Why is he so bossy? Right? Do you think any Russian-speaking person, unless it's not one of us, not a language teacher, just a native speaker, do you think anybody would see a grammar mistake? No. Right? Why is he talking to you like that? Nobody would ever think it's about grammar. And this is the important stuff. So, is it safe to use imperfective all the time? No. Imagine I have to ask you something, and instead of налейте кофе or дайте торт, я скажу наливайте кофе, давайте торт. This is a typical new Russian, from a joke. Talking to the waiter in the restaurant, right? Because instead of making a request, what I'm doing, what's underneath, what is the implication of using imperfective imperative in this case, is I'm giving you a permission to serve me. It is better for you to serve me now, right? So it's imperfective versus perfective, right? If I want something from you, I should ask, do it for me, please, with perfective verbs. Imperfective, perfective. Дайте, налейте, скажите, right? If I'm a tourist lost in Moscow, I would say, скажите, пожалуйста, где метро? Because I'm asking for information I need from you. If I come to you and say, говорите, где метро, you start looking for a gun in my hand, right? I sound like a terrorist. Because it's better for you to tell me right now. So there is no grammar. there is no grammar separated from semantics and pragmatics. There is no form without function, and grammar can be fun, right? And we should teach the important stuff that is related to our daily lives. And these were some of the main ideas I wanted to share, but let's, since I was asked to leave some time for your questions and discussions, if there are some, or I can go on, or you can ask and then I'll go on. So yeah, let's just do it in an informal way. Пожалуйста.
Please in English, just...
Yeah, that's better for me in English, actually. Well, I'm a Russian student, and I'm an English teacher as well. So I would really like to ask you, because like right now I face many not problems, like I have a really nice teacher actually, but as I said, the clenches are really difficult for me, because we don't face that either in English or in Latin languages. The clenches, like падеж. Yeah. So it's really difficult for me now to learn all of them. And like, as I'm in a 1-year prep course right now, I face all of them all the time. And I don't know like which technique may I use to improve my skills actually writing, because whenever I talk in Russian, people can understand me, I don't face many problems, but whenever I'm writing, there's the matter of grammar, that I must use it properly. And I don't know what should I do if I just grab a grammar book and do many exercises, or read, or what should I do? Okay.
That's a good question, a tough one. Can I? No, I can't draw something. But, you know, there is one, I believe there is just one good way to learn cases. Learn them one by one, yeah? If you want my advice, the recommended order is prepositional, accusative, genitive, dative, instrumental, and controlled practice. Find someone and do a lot of controlled practice, yeah? But you see, because when you were explaining your problem to me right now, I could feel that you say somehow, when I talk it's fine, I make mistakes, but still people understand because I have the context, because I can point at something, because they expect what I may or may not say, and you somehow, don't want to say you don't care, but almost like, yeah, you can talk. But then when you start writing, you make mistakes. So I believe that what you need is to talk consciously, yeah, with someone not correcting mistakes, but giving you the right forms for what you want to say, yeah. Controlled practice is the king. Try to find a partner or a teacher who I'm not selling to you, right? I'm not in Moscow. I'll go back to Saint Petersburg tonight. So this is not advertising any course from myself, but find a teacher for some private lessons and do controlled practice. I think if you are lucky enough, I think 20 lessons will do. I mean it. Because you've seen the forms, you are not learning them from scratch, right? I know that with a good teacher, in 80 to 100 lessons, you can learn from scratch to using all the 6 cases properly, right? So since you know something, 20 will do. Yeah, but you need to be able to say what you want to say and use cases at the same time, right? Communicate and use cases. These are not connected for you yet, right? And cases should be tools for communication and not rules in the book. And that's why doing more gap-filling exercises won't help much. Because you immediately forget the book when you start talking. Yeah, and speak slowly, by the way. You are an important person. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
I have a question. This year I work in the university. It's my first experience with university students, and I have a problem. My group is very mixed. They are from so different countries. And my question is, what do you recommend? How should I work with phonetic skills? Because this is a problem. Phonetic, anyway, it is an important point, right? So, and one thing, if, for example, all the students are from China, then I know how to work with students from China because I know some differences and all. But if they're from all the world and some of them have these problems, some of them has other problems, what do you recommend?
Thank you, but first of all, I have to apologize because I'm not a magician. And the questions you come up with are obviously very important questions, but they are sort of unsolvable ones, right? There is no good solution. But I'll try to make your life easier. First of all, I do believe that we shouldn't, yes, I'll say it. I believe we shouldn't struggle for a perfect accent in Russian. Yeah, because speaking with an accent, with a foreign accent, is nowadays absolutely fine and acceptable. In older times, you remember, I mean, who is about my generation maybe, you remember learning English at school and practicing this Queen's English, and which I haven't mastered yet anyway, but what is the global language today, the number one? English. This is not the English we were taught at school. This is the language the Japanese used to talk to the Swedes. Yeah? And the same is happening to Russian. Nowadays we can hear all the accents. In the new globalized world, the accent is not as important as it was 50 years ago, right? So the point is just to be understood, which is still an issue with Chinese students. So, you know what? There is very strong connection. Now linguists are discovering more and more that there is very strong connection between listening and speaking. I know that in class you have limited time. This is the problem, right? Actually, your problem is just one, that you don't have enough time to practice with all the students. And they cannot practice pronunciation themselves on their own. I think partly the solution can be make them do more listening. Because now we know that, there was some psycholinguistic research that said that when people, it was with English speakers, but I think it works the same for anybody. When people hear words like jump, there is an impulse going into their leg muscles. Really. When people hear, wave your hand, there is something going on in their hand muscles. So there is a very strong connection between what people hear and also between hearing and articulation in the language, of course. So give them listening. Maybe make them repeat, yeah, but you have to give this work as their homework, and listening can be very helpful. That's the only thing. Sorry, I know it's not the perfect solution, but that's what I would do. Yeah, make them spend more time listening, and they will imitate. There are two more things that are for all students. Russian is difficult to pronounce. Have you heard that? There are some real difficulties, like the Chinese students have with many of our sounds and sounds in other languages, but there are two difficulties that are easy to avoid, I believe. One, I think it has to do with the Cyrillic alphabet. It's a new alphabet for most of our students. And when our students learn their mother tongue with an alphabet or with a different writing system, they, from the very beginning, by intuition, they knew the difference between consonants and vowels, right? When students encounter a new alphabet, Cyrillic, they somehow feel all letters are equal. And many of them occasionally start treating consonants as if they were vowels. They try to pronounce consonants separately. Almost, I exaggerate, but I tell them, stop singing consonants. That's the difference. That's why they are called consonants, because they sound only together with a vowel. They shouldn't be separated. I mean, even Pavarotti couldn't sing a simple P. Imagine a Pavarotti singing P. He would explode. But he wouldn't be able to sing it, right? And one of the difficulties is that when there is a new alphabet with new letters, our students are trying to pronounce thoroughly all the letters. And consonants are treated as if they were vowels, as separate sounds. And then there is no way I can say встреча, because I start with and it's spasmodic somehow, yeah? So run through the consonants and rush to the vowel. Vstре. Okay? This is a very valuable advice for some students, because it often helped me to sort out problems with pronunciation. The other one is, it's closely connected to this one. There are words with shorter words. In English, you can say stop, like in, for example, you stop. 4 letters. Stop. How do you say you stop in Russian? No, you stop as a constatation. Останавливаетесь. I've counted 16. 4 times as many as in the English word. 4 times. 4 letters, 16 letters. Останавливаетесь. So, in many languages, like English, for example, most words are units. They are bricks. And you pronounce them as units. Stop. Or meat. Russian words are not bricks. They are constructions built of bricks. And there is no way you can say встречаемся or останавливаетесь the same way as you say stop or meet. And you shouldn't try. If I try, I'll fail as well. Встречаемся. Остановитесь. Russian is very difficult. Встречаемся. Останавливаетесь. No, I can't say this Russian word is too long. What do you mean? Can you say an English sentence of 5 words? Why can't you say a Russian word of 5 parts? Yeah? Make steps. I mean, this or this would be helpful too. Yeah? But, yeah, absolutely. Yes. So, but don't treat Russian words as units. treat as constructions, not bricks, but constructions built of bricks. They were not designed to be pronounced as unit, they are too long, because Russian is a synthetical language, and one Russian word contains as much information as a few English words, as you know, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for coming, first of all. I would like to know your opinion about blended learning. Have you ever tried flipped class in your school or something like that?
No, I haven't, because I know it can be fun. Maybe I will one day, but so far we are always striving for efficiency. And I still believe that there is nothing better than a good language, professional language instructor and controlled practice, yeah? This is my credo. It might change one day. But still, somehow, I believe that a lot of these new, I think that a lot of these new technologies, they appear and they become popular, not because they are more efficient, but because we exist in this state-funded, state-run, mostly educational system, where institutions want to save money and try to have less paid lessons given by teachers somehow, it's somehow makes students self-educate, yeah? Give more to self-learning, and which is a great thing if we talk about biology. But language, I believe, is different. Yeah, I think it's a good thing for many subjects, but not for language. Because language is a skill. It's not a science. It's a psychomotoric activity which should be practiced under control of an instructor with others, and not like it's not about memorizing, or it's not about knowledge. These things, I believe, they are better for areas where what you need is knowledge and understanding. And language it's more like sports than like learning physics to me. Yeah? And I do a lot of sports, and I've tried, I have tried myself, and I have tried with professional instructors. And I can tell, even though it costs, but a professional instructor makes it so much more efficient than I can do myself, that I still prefer, have help from a professional instructor as much as I can afford it, time-wise and money-wise. Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah.
How we can start learn Russian? Interesting, when our students have very different level of first lesson.
Yeah. We divide groups, We are a private school, and we run the school. And we are teachers. Yeah? And it's our own school. So we just don't let it happen. Because it's our money, and we lose our own money, and we say, no, we have two groups, three groups of 2 students each, and not one group of 6 students on different levels learning together. But I would say, what would you do? I would say, yeah, exactly, that's good. The first lesson should be Russia and what you associate with Russia, your cultural associations. And have a discussion. And people just need words. You know, for the first lesson, find this or any other question where students just need words. Let it be, and these are mostly words they know. What can they say? Lenin, vodka, Tchaikovsky, ballet. Students who speak some Russian can say холодно. Yeah, борщ. Big. Yeah? This is a good idea, right? Yeah.
And you can understand, in fact, the level of the speaker and the topic of the interest. You know, something.
And if you still have time, do they come from different countries? Do it with their countries as well then. Each student's take each student's country and let everybody give associations. That would be good. And you have the first cross-cultural experience as well, yeah? Yeah?
And maybe one more question for me.
Yeah. And there are two more things I wanted to tell you, yeah?
Yeah, just a very
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
important thing.
Please. You can be very loud, but still.
Oh, thank you. I just would like you to express and to share your point of view and your vision. What is a good teacher of Russian? What sort of person is this person? I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. I think a good teacher of Russian should be fun. Yeah, a good teacher of Russian should be fun, loud, and love Russian language and culture. I mean it. Love it. And preach it. Whatever. But love something about what we teach. Because I do love. I'm in love with the Russian language and culture. And what I really hate is when people teach a language and they are not interested in it. And they cannot answer students' questions. And, you know, they hate Russian so much that when students ask, why is something like that? Why would you use perfective or imperfective here? You know what they say? They quote Tuchev and they say, Russia cannot be understood by mind. Oh. You know, I'm a liberal fundamentalist and I'm a very kind person. But this is the only non-violent crime I would physically punish for. Whenever I hear that used in class as a justification for not explaining, answering a question about the language, I'm ready to start using non-verbal means of communication. Yeah? There are two more little tricks I wanted to share with you. You know, as a linguist, I love words. And sometimes words are able to tell us very important, instrumental, funny things that we forgot. They are in the history of words, but they are still very helpful. What's the Russian word for the case? Right. What does it resemble to? By the way, in the German, who speaks German? The German word for the case? Fall. Yeah. What does it sound like, падеж? It sounds like what? Yeah. Exactly. It's good it's a paper one. I once smashed a mug, but it was in my school, so I could afford it. So, yeah. Do you know why? Any ideas? What is falling? A student, because he has to learn all the cases. Boom. Yeah? And why? This is an ancient word, originally used for throwing dice. And this is very interesting that maybe I'm not that much into gambling, but the maximum, they have 6 sides and 6 numbers, like 6 cases in Russian. And this is like you take a word, like a dice, you throw it into the sentence, and it shows one of its sides. That of the subject, the object, the tool, right? It shows its value or its meaning, its significance in this particular play, once again. Isn't that nice? I mean, it's not about rules, it's about playing a game. Yeah, and yes, all games have rules. Speaking Russian is a game with its rules. But it's a game, we play it. And the same with the aspect. Why is it called an aspect? Or what's the Russian for aspect? Exactly. And you know, I always tell my students, this is what aspect is about. It's how you look at the action. It's not about the real world that you can touch, if such exists, which is a philosophical question. It's about the way you look at it. Because one of the most common mistakes students make is they think that the choice of the aspect somehow comes from the objective reality. But it's always the choice of the speaker. It's about what you are interested in. Because one and the same event, one of the same piece of the real life can be always described with perfective and imperfective verbs, depending on what matters to you. It's an aspect, so it's a way of looking at things. Yeah? And I think this is a very valuable understanding. It's the way you look at things. I mean, you know, if you were a film director and you were to make a movie about perfective and imperfective verbs, you know that to represent an imperfective verb, you would show the person acting, for example, right? Someone in the course of the action, no matter past, present, or future. No matter finished or not, no matter with the result or without, but you would show someone working, dancing, writing, reading, eating, talking. But if you were a film director making a movie about perfective verbs, your camera would go to the book, the pizza, the whatever results from the action, right? You would have the achievement shown on screen. So this is about the way we look at things, right? And by the way, aspects are a huge topic, and we could spend another 3 hours talking about it. And I'd love to, but one last thing I wanted to tell you, because this is my personal crusade. I'm fighting a war against the very popular misunderstanding on verb aspects, and I'll be really happy if you join my army. This is the crusade I'm fighting against the idea that using imperfective means the action is unfinished and perfective means the action is finished. You know, sort of, Антон пишет письмо, Антон написал письмо. You know. Because it's easy to explain things like that. And it seems easy to understand. But the problem is it doesn't reflect any language reality. What I've just done is I haven't explained aspects, which is a difficult topic. I've explained the very simple notion of present tense versus past tense. I substituted explaining tenses, explaining aspects by explaining tenses. Unfinished means it's present tense, it's going on. Finished means it's past tense. This is a very easy idea, and aspects are something very different. And therefore, in our both new books, which is the new Поехали, first volume, totally new version, and the grammar book, the Russian grammar in exercises, which we'll be happy to present you, I hope, next year, and we've been writing it for 10 years almost, we give aspects, we start explaining the notion of aspects with bare infinitives. To have pure aspect explained and not to mix it up with tense. Okay. Thank you for coming.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stanislav. You know, that was just the greatest. Yeah, that was the greatest start that we could even imagine, you know. Please follow us, follow our news. We, the Contemporary Russian Language Center of RANEPA, you know, just what a great thing to say. We're just, we intend to make a very big and a very profound and a digging-like cycle and system of new discussion rooms and new ideas for mobilizing the community of those who are teaching Russian all over the world. And that's why we are, today we're speaking English, and we will be speaking English after, I don't know, later. And the next step will be, I suppose, a sort of debates concerning teaching Russian to those who are Chinese. And we suppose that it will be a very interesting issue. And then we will talk about different methods of teaching Russian, and we appreciate your keen interest, and so thank you. And thank you, Stanislav, one more time. That was really great. Thank you.
I'm a very open person. As you can see, you can always find me on Facebook. I always answer to all teachers' questions if I can. Yeah, and I'll be happy to be in contact with you. So, yeah.